Okay, without further ado, Minister Pippa Hackett. Round of applause, please.
Now, thank you very much. Good afternoon. It's wonderful to be here, and it's great to see such a great crowd. I remember the first one in Tullamore in 2018, and there was probably maybe a quarter of the number that are people here, and it was all very new for a lot of us. And it's brilliant to see how this whole movement and BioFarm has grown over the years. And I think we're at a very exciting time for agriculture and farming in Ireland. And there's an opportunity here now to embrace all the knowledge that's in this room and to share it and get more people, I suppose, on this train, because I think this train is going in the right direction. And then we certainly need to bring people with us. So I'm sorry I wasn't here this morning, and I'm sorry I missed some of the discussions earlier on. I caught the tail end of the last one, but I'm sure it was reflective of what's been spoken about earlier on. Government meetings are on Tuesday morning, so I had to, once Cabinet was over, jumped in the car and came down. But I think, I suppose just a very brief introduction. I am an organic farmer. We're beef and sheep farmers in County Offaly with my husband Mark. And I suppose we've been organically farming for 10 years. And certainly for us, it was the best decision we ever made for our farm. And it really reignited our interest in farming. And I think you get a bit of control back, which was great. So I think I can, I can relate to some of the comments that were made earlier. But I suppose as my role as Minister for Land Use and Biodiversity, I travel a lot around Ireland. And I've had the opportunity to speak with many different farmers who are trying new things, trying different things, and some of whom are doing things in a more traditional sense. And by that, I mean that they're following and rediscovering practices that were mainstream before the chemical industrialisation of European agriculture. But so many of those farmers have been looking at the bigger picture and a broader, more holistic perspective than simply chasing input costs. I'd like to think that I get a reasonably good sense of the breadth of practices across the country from my travels, and I do really think there is serious momentum building now in Ireland behind regenerative farming, behind biological farming, and maybe most simply put, it is truly sustainable farming. So that growing sense of momentum certainly applies to organic farming also, which I suppose is easier to nail down as a concept, as a movement, because there are written rules and there's regulations around what organic certification means. And again, for me, the unifying thread that captures the essence of that momentum is, I think, that the farmers at its vanguard are farming with an open mind. These farmers are farming with a sense of perspective, with an understanding and a respect of their farm's place in the natural environment, and they are farming and innovating in harmony with the natural environment rather than trying to defy it. I think that open mind and a willingness to innovate and try new things is key to building a resilient farming system, one that can produce food in a way that works with the natural constraints of the farm's topography and existing ecology, and ultimately one that works from a business perspective to deliver a viable income. While that openness to new ideas and to a more holistic way of thinking about the farm system is one part of the jigsaw, it's nothing without the advice and the knowledge sharing of the pioneering innovators in whose footsteps we can follow. Events like this are critical in sharing knowledge and ideas, and in helping people learn from each other and making new connections. BioFarm, to my mind, is the Woodstock of Irish agriculture. It's visionary, it's progressive, it's a movement whose influence will be to change how Irish farms produce food for decades to come. This isn't about putting people into silos or pitching one type of farm system against another. This is about celebrating the best of organic, of regenerative, of biological farming, and championing what works in those systems and making those practices mainstream. As a government minister, I'm acutely aware of the reality of the extent to which farmers respond to incentives and the power of government to use financial incentives to nudge farmers in one direction or another. I would love nothing more than to have the keys to the kingdom and all the money in the world to be designing the Common Agricultural Policy from scratch, and to be able to move more radically away from a system of predominantly area and sectoral-based payments. But the reality is that we operate within the confines of a political system and a subsidy structure that still has a distance to travel in fully embracing the idea of payments for environmental benefits and for adopting progressive practices, rather than the lion's share of payments simply subsidising the same way of farming. Notwithstanding that political reality, however, I believe that during the lifetime of this government, we have made real progress. We have incentivised an unprecedented level of interest in the organic farming scheme, and we are on course to hit our target of 10% of all agricultural land farmed organically by 2030. We have mainstreamed the concept of results-based payments through the ACRE scheme and through the European Innovation Partnerships, the EIPs. We know there are teething problems in rolling out some of those EIPs into acres for the purposes of scaling them up to get more farmers involved. Acres, it's not perfect. No scheme is. But what it represents is the fact that we have now embedded in the Department of Agriculture policy, embedded in Department of Agriculture policy the idea that we reward farmers for the environmental results they bring about through their farming practices. Similarly, with financial supports for farmers to sow multi-species swards and red clover, these are pillars of a resilient farming system. And those of us who've been farming organically have been reliant on these for quite some time. While the money involved is a drop in the ocean in the context of the overall Department of Agriculture budget, the level of interest in the past 2 years and the number of conventional farmers getting on board and sowing red clover and multi-species swards shows the enormous influence that pioneering farmers like those in this room with that open mind can have beyond their own farm gate by showing how things can be done in a better way. We're paying farmers to take heed of their soil again, something many of us in this room have been doing for years without government support, but which is critical to get your nutrients right so you can reduce or eliminate external chemical inputs. Of course, the biological component of soil has for far too long been ignored by government policy. So it was great to see that Talamh Beo received funding in 2021 under my EIP call that year for a soil biodiversity project, which involved 16 farms across Ireland embarking on a year-long educational course and experimental investigation. And you will be able to find details outside. I see a stand. But improving that understanding of how soil functions and offering practical advice on how to kickstart sleepy or degraded soils is something every farmer can learn from, no matter what system they have. And this is something we need to continue to build on. Agroforestry, again, a practice that delivers on so many fronts, from soil health, carbon sequestration, water quality, and animal well-being. Pioneers and innovators have championed the benefits of agroforestry for years. And now in government, we have put the money behind agroforestry that we hope will see it take off across the country. So we are making progress, and we are definitely starting to see allocations of budgetary resources and to direct subsidies in the right way. But the numbers and the finances are never going to be enough on their own. To take organics for an example, clearly the market question is hugely important. So we are promoting the Irish organic offering abroad in a big way. I myself have done 3 trade missions to mainland Europe in the past 2 years, and you will be seeing domestic ads for organics over the coming weeks as well. We're also proposing 10% of state-purchased food to be organic. But again, this only all covers the financial side of the equation. But aside from those numbers, to encourage farmers to adapt their systems and embrace new practices, we need to be able to point to the examples of where it is working well, to have those pioneering early adapters showing the way. There really is no substitute for a neighbour or an advisor or a friend of a friend or someone you trust who has done it before, to be able to walk a farm that has been doing it for years, to see and to hear how different systems work in practice and how they can work, talking and listening with an open mind. And some of the most important conversations that are being had in Irish farming started at this event 5 years ago and are continuing today, be they on stage in a formal capacity or formal setting today or tomorrow, or over lunch or dinner, or maybe over a couple of pints later on in the bar. But this is the epicenter of the movement of the open mind. These are the conversations that will shape how we farm 5, 10, 20 years down the line. Yours are the farms that people will want to walk about and see how it works in practice. So without going on any longer, I'm going to let you get back to the proper experts in a moment, back to those conversations that will shape the path for the future of Irish farming. And I really want to thank you all most sincerely for giving of your time, your knowledge, and your experience so generously, and for championing farming systems that will ultimately bring about real sustainability and real resilience. Thank you.
I think it can't be underestimated how impressive it is as well that since Minister Hackett has taken over, that the number of organic farmers in the country has doubled. You know, that we do have a serious question over markets, like you mentioned, but that can't be underestimated. Actually, I did hear the Board BM Organics ad on the radio recently, so people should keep an ear out for that. So there you go. Okay, so I know there are going to be questions from the audience, so if you can introduce yourself first, just tell us your name and then your question. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. My name is Rose Hogan. I'm the Sustainable Agriculture Advisor with Trócaire. And I'm really excited about what's happening in Ireland in terms of the incentives that you've been promoting. But I wanted to ask you about the UNFCCC COP28 that's upcoming. And what are Ireland's priorities for agriculture and climate change in that forum?
Thanks, Rose. I think Ireland have been very much, I'm just actually back from Paris, Rome, and where I attended the Food and Agriculture Organization event on food, the FAO. It was a food security event, but it was really focused on youth engagement. But certainly the message that I got very loud and clear, and I'll get round to the answer in a minute, but the message certainly from that forum was very much about ensuring that sort of shorter supply chain in those developing countries, those most challenged countries, which sometimes, we see being perceived as, we just need to grow more food somewhere else and send it that way and that'll sort the problem. For me, that's not going to sort the problem. We really, it's that whole argument, you don't give the man a fish, you give him a fishing rod or a net. And I think we have to very much focus on that. And I think I would like to see that being our approach when we do go to COP, about enabling local communities in those most challenged of countries that have contributed so little, almost nothing to the challenges we now face. I think the whole continent of Africa contributes 4% to global greenhouse gas emissions. That just puts it into perspective. So I think I would like to see that's the message going. I haven't engaged with my Minister for Agriculture, Charlie McConnell, will be attending on behalf of the department, so I'll certainly engage with him over the next couple of weeks about that. But I would like that to be the message that we are really driving on with that localised effort across the world.
Okay, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Hello, Minister Hackett. Thanks very much for your speech, and it's great to see that the organics is opening up again this year for new entrants. But my question, it's leading more towards the Thames grants and the agroforestry that you were speaking about. In my personal situation, we applied for the agroforestry about 3 years ago and we still haven't got approval. And the Thames grant, we're still waiting on the likes of solar and farm improvement grants. And I was just wondering why there's such a hold up in the system with all the grants, because it's not just myself personally, it's across the whole spectrum with farmers at the moment. I was just wondering if you could shed any light on that.
Well, I can't speak to your personal example of the agroforestry and happy to look into that. You shouldn't be waiting 3 years for an agroforestry licence.
there could be more information that's needed. I don't know. Certainly TAMS I know has been frustrating for farmers, especially this time of the year now, because they have had their applications in and they're waiting. I understand that they have prioritised certain TAMS elements such as slurry storage, the solar, and I think organic TAMS as well has been prioritised. So I think anyone who has applied may have had some sort of request or notification. Can you let us know if you're willing to go ahead? But again, I can check the details. I can't speak for an example, but it has been, I think it's been oversubscribed. This is a particularly challenging year across agricultural schemes. It's the first year for new CAP. There's new schemes in there, new systems, and it's a combination of design, it's a combination of resources on the ground, IT systems. All of these make first years, apparently, of any scheme. It's my first time as a minister to experience this, and that is the challenge. But I'm happy to chat to you after it gets the details, and we'll see if we can push it along.
There were definitely some prioritised elements. Your certification body might have been in touch regarding that, and they were put through. But is there any timeline on kind of general TAMS, or say for the organic farmers who didn't ask for priority, kind of speed up? Are we maybe even the next month? Will we know before Christmas?
I'll have to check. I don't know. I don't have the detail on me. Yeah, but
okay. Do we have time for one? Maybe just one more question, and then we'll wrap it up there.
Minister,
if you just want to introduce yourself first, if that's okay.
John Kersey. Minister, there are some 80 farmers, organic dairy farmers in the country out of 18,000. Do you have a strategy in place to increase the number of organic dairy farmers?
Thanks, John. And look, it is something we do want to see more of. We certainly want to see more organic dairy farmers for all sorts of reasons. I think ultimately that is a decision for individual farmers to make if they want to go for organics and if they want to become organic. And again, there's all sorts of reasons why farmers might want to go organic. It might not always be the financial incentive or the market. It could be a quality of life piece. It could be you want to do things differently on your farm. You might just, and I suppose there's a lot of moving parts. I know the challenge with dairy is certainly particularly last year was such a very strong market for conventional dairy. The way I try to, I suppose, pose it or present it is organic farming is different to conventional farming. It's not just doing something the same and what you're replacing one input with another. And the inputs across the board, I think it's a different way of farming. And if you choose to go organic, you've chosen to do it differently, and it is going to be different. But we do really want to see, I suppose, more of a critical mass in terms of organic dairy. That's going to help every organic dairy farmer. It is a different market you're feeding into. It's not the same market. It's, in one sense, it's apples and oranges, even though it's still milk. Look, there is slightly increased incentive to support dairy farmers. I mean, it's probably not enough for many dairy farmers to make that consideration. I have anecdotally spoken with a couple of dairy farmers who are actually current organic dairy farmers who had been organic for a number of years, who were happy, and actually the small increase in the payments sort of kept them in, if you like. But we would not be able to make the full compensatory payment if people want to go like with like. It's a different way of farming, and the choice has to be made from a different perspective. It can't just be about the finances, I think. But we do want to support. Now, actually, if there was any suggestions other than financial elements that you think would support more conventional dairy farmers going organic. I know there's pressures now from nitrates is a pressure, land availability. The cost of farming is conventional dairy farming is a high cost way of farming. It's quite high risk if the market fluctuates like it has been doing. I suppose I would say that if you look at 10-year trends for organic dairy, it tends to be a consistent price. You sort of know what you're going to be getting, where you might have that reliability with the conventional. But I'm happy to hear your suggestions if there are any afterwards.
And we might have some input as well from Kevin O'Hanlon, who's going to be our next speaker.
Ask Kevin
as well. I'm going to get a round of applause, please, for the Minister. Thank you very much.